All right, so today I want to talk about this story out of the Rebel News that Paul Mitchell responds to. In it, they say average Canadian family now spends 43% of income on taxes. And Paul Mitchell says average Canadian family now spends 43% of income on taxes. A new study finds the average Canadian family now spends more money on taxes than they do on food, shelter, and clothing combined. We have a pandemic of government overspending and taxes. Now, this is a huge issue. Like, this is a huge issue. The big problem here is the majority of people support this, right? Like, the majority of people support this kind of stuff. And I mean, this is a way that you know that these lefties really don't. I mean, they don't even believe what they're saying because, I mean, for starters, everybody is fiscally conservative when it comes to their money. The main difference being is that the left is fiscally liberal or to the left when it comes to other people's money, but fiscally conservative when it comes to their own money, right? Like, I mean, how many of these examples do you need of these, big, celebrities and politicians that are, filthy rich? But I mean, this is the other big thing too. I really can't stand about these people that claim to be, socialists, and these, even if you don't claim to be a socialist, if you claim to be on the left, especially if you earn a lot of money, like these celebrities and politicians are prime examples of it, like prime examples of it. That again, you're worth, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. I don't care. Um, if you just pay the minimum amount of income taxes every year, then you're a crazy idiot, right? Like, there's nothing stopping you from paying more, as far as I'm aware of. Like, if you write the government a check or transfer them some money, yeah, they're gonna, what are they gonna send it back? Like, no, like, or at the very least donate it to charity, right? Like, donate extra money to charity. This is the problem, that these people are just flaming hypocrites, like flaming hypocrites. And I was going through social media the other day, and I follow a pretty far, and well, definitely far leftist, because they're pretty open about it. And they had a post, and they were making fun of the people that claim to be, I'm socially liberal but fiscally conservative, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry if I care about the poor, and all that garbage they bring up about how, oh, you can't be fiscally conservative and care about the poor, don't you know? But this is the problem. Like, this is the problem I always bring up too, is that the only way the leftist, let's give away free money argument makes sense is if there's an unlimited supply, and said on having an unlimited supply won't destroy the dollar or the country's credit rating, any of that kind of stuff, right? But the reality is that it will. The reality is that there isn't an unlimited supply of money. Therefore, the only rational solution is to be fiscally conservative. The problem is that the conservatives aren't even very fiscally conservative, right? Like, the NDP and the Liberals are pretty much socialists. Like, if anything, they put socialists to shame, right? Like, they are the any major left-wing party in Canada is not to the right of where a socialist traditionally would be. The problem is that the political spectrum is pushed so far to the left that people think that a center leftist is what, like, a modern liberal is, which is absolutely laughable. And the studies and the polls clearly back that up. They clearly back that up. I mean, you look at the poll that I made a video about, and it showed that um, Democrats in the states, if you look at Democrats in 2008, Democrats in 2016, and you do the same thing for Republicans, there's more of a gap between Democrats now and Democrats in 2008 than there was between Democrats and Republicans in 2008. So in other words, if you were a Republic, like a average run of the mill Republican in 2008, or an average run of the mill Democrat, you agree with Republicans more than you do Democrats now. Like, that's how far to the left that they have gone. Now, too, people say, oh, well, that's the States. Well, Canada's the same. We have free healthcare in Canada. I mean, they have that in the States to an extent. But if anything, we're even further to the left, right? So the idea that the Liberals are center left is absolutely laughable. And the fact that people actually argue that with a straight face is beyond hilarious. Like, the Conservatives are very close to being center left. I think the Conservatives in Canada on the federal level are about as moderate as you can possibly be. They are a centrist party at this point. And for the people saying, "Oh no, that's no," if that wasn't the case, the PPC would not exist. The Wexit movement would not exist, right? Like, that, it would not exist because Again, they accuse the PPC and Wexit of being far right. Well, if the Conservatives are so far to the right, why would there be multiple political factions competing them? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? So that's the thing. And people could say the same about the NDP and the Liberals. Well, the NDP and the Liberals are just competing about who can go further left, right? Like the NDP basically exists at a federal level, at least, because at a provincial level they're different. And the same goes for Liberals. The Liberals are non-existent, provincially in a lot of provinces, and same for the NDP. But um, the NDP at a federal level basically exists to be we're on the left, but we're not Justin Trudeau, right? Like, that's basically why they exist. And the NDP in the past, I think, were actually a little bit more reasonable. Like, under Jack Layton, yeah, they were not nearly as crazy as they are right now. Like, they were actually somewhat feasible. But now they've gone off the deep end, especially with Jagmeet Singh. So they basically exist as if you recognize just how corrupt and crazy the Liberals are, but you still want to vote left, vote for us. Like, that's basically why they exist, right? And the PPC is kind of like that, although it's a little bit different in that they haven't had enough time to gain as much traction. Not to mention, too, there's also the competing Wexit movement, so it is a little different comparison. But I want to get back to the main point here. 43% of the income on taxes. How did the majority of people actually believe that that's about a good amount? Like, I think that number should be less than half. I mean, the average family should spend no more than 20% on. And when people hear taxes, they think of, oh, just federal and provincial taxes. No, I would imagine that this is including the carbon tax. This is including, um, property taxes. This is including, GST, HST, any PST, any of those kind of things too. And all those should be lower. We should be at a point to where, it should be like 20-25% max. And that includes the evil rich, right? And this is the other big fallacy that people hear, is that if you tax the rich less, they just spend more money. Like, if you tax people less, they just spend more money, which means that the only difference being is that the reason why the left wants to tax the rich is not because they want to provide more services, right? Because the exact amount of money are pretty much the same, is going to be in circulating in the economy. The reason that the left wants to tax the rich is because they just want to steal the money for themselves and give it to people who want to vote for them, right? Like, it's literally just vote buying, because it's not the super rich tend to be a little more lefty, but the moderately wealthy people, they tend to be more conservative. And why do they tend to be more conservative? Because they're not like filthy rich, right? You may have a second house, but you don't live in a 10,000 square foot house, right? You probably live in a $1-2 million house, um, which is very, very wealthy, but you're not exactly, going to be able to retire at 40 and, keep spending your $500,000 a year or whatever you're getting in salary, right? So that there's a little bit of a difference there. But anyway, like I say, the main point being is that this number is way too high, like way too high. And I don't see how people can possibly argue how this is a good amount. Like, and this is the thing too, for people, let's say people making less than, like 100,000 or less, right? Like, I'd really like to hear these lefties' opinion on what percentage of that income should be paid towards taxes, because um, either way, I think it makes them look bad. Like, if they say it's this good or better, then they're basically saying that we just want to take all the money for ourselves, right? Like, if they genuinely believe that this is a good amount, or the number should be higher, then they're basically saying that we just want to tax all your money away, right? But if they say it's lower, they're basically admitting their policies don't work, right? So it really doesn't make any sense. Either way, they're really wrong when it comes to this kind of stuff. The reality is, again, is that people taxes should be at the point to where literally a bare minimum amount of services are provided. Like, tax people to the point to where literally a bare minimum amount of, the ones that you absolutely positively need, right? That's where taxes should be at. What can pay for that? The problem is that the minute you give the government and the people power to vote for whatever they want, they immediately just vote themselves more money, right? The politicians promise to give people more benefits in return for voting for them, which means politicians benefit greatly for doing that kind of stuff. and the people voting for them benefit greatly as well for voting them in. So um, yeah, this is something that I wanted to point out too, and this number is only getting worse, right? Like median incomes in Canada are not going up anytime soon. Like I highly doubt it under Justin Trudeau. Like I highly doubt it. I mean, if they do, it's going to be due to inflation too. It's not going to be due to actual growth. So that is the other thing to bring up too as a caveat. But again, this is the big problem too, that a lot of people say, oh, it's not that bad, which I think most people recognize it's too much, even if they want to admit it or not. But the real problem being is that it's only getting worse. Like the carbon tax, as long as Justin Trudeau's in power, it's only going to go up, even though there's no evidence that it works. It's only going to go up. Not to mention, too, taxes are only going to go up too. I mean, all these idiots calling for a GST in Alberta, like taxes are only going to go up. So that is the problem too. And it's like I say too, the cost of living is only going up too. But the big problem is that your actual real take-home income is not going up. But your living expenses and your expenses are. So that things are only going to get worse in Canada until people wake up that we need to deregulate. We need to massively cut regulations and taxes, and that's pretty much the only way that we're going to get ourselves out of this. So, um, anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me on Twitter, on BitChute, and on on Parler. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.